Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Loft. Join award-winning host Dale Davidson as he interviews the most remarkable people you'll find in the entertainment capital of the world. You'll meet entertainers, sports figures, newsmakers, community and business leaders, and people just like you with stories that'll touch your heart. Now, here's Dale Davidson.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. Every week we bring you fascinating guests, and we've done it again. We're pleased to have an author with us today who's from Las Vegas. His name is Dave Newton. He's got a fascinating book for kids, and it's an evangelistic tool. It's a great story for kids to understand Jesus Christ, and that's what we're all about. Dave, thanks for coming in.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's really nice of you to stop by.
Thank you.
Speaking about being from Las Vegas, tell us how long you've been here.
It's about 20 years now.
Wow, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too. So that's where'd you come from originally?
New York.
From New York City?
Well,
Yeah.
we lived in the suburbs. We lived in Westchester.
Oh, yeah, I know Westchester.
I was born in upstate New York in Syracuse.
Oh, okay, yeah. Syracuse, a nice little town.
Yeah.
I used to vacation there by
Really?
Oneida Lake.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So anyway, here you are in Las Vegas, and what do you do for a living now, Dave?
Well, I'm self-employed. I do human resource consulting. I do employee surveys mainly.
Oh, okay,
And then I have a side business where I do seminars, gaming seminars.
Oh, okay. And what made you decide you wanted to be an author, particularly a Christian author and an author of children's books?
Well, it's not a child. I'd say it's more for youth, maybe
okay.
11 and up.
Yeah.
It's just something I always wanted to try.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see if I could do it, and I decided I would take a month and give it a shot. And,
Yeah.
focus
And you knocked
on
it out in a month?
Well,
That's pretty
the
good.
first version it took a month, and then I actually set it aside for a while, and came back to it later, and then when I reread it after a while, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. So I'll spend a little more time and fine tune it, and put on the finishing touches. So I spent some more time.
As an author myself, I truly understand Mark Twain's line, which is, it's not writing, it's rewriting.
There's a lot of rewriting. Yeah, there's a lot of rewriting. But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because as an author, and I never realized it until I did it, but you just have this incredible sense of power, because you create this whole world and people, and it's a very interesting situation to do that, and to try to see where it goes.
That's really interesting. You have kids yourself.
I have one 25-year-old.
Yes, and did you read to him when he was a child?
Well, I read all the time to him, every night for the first about 12 years of his life.
Wow.
Yeah, every night. And as he was getting older, I was wondering, how long would this keep going? And it kind of petered out at 12. He was getting a little old at that point, but we enjoyed it. And he listens to stories to go to sleep now, still at 25. He likes to do it, so I guess it's
gets him in the mood, and he associates it with sleeping.
It's a habit, I think. You get into the habit of listening and falling asleep.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Christianity for a second. Obviously, you're a Christian man, and I know that for a fact. We met at a Christian businessmen's event, and you and I talked about your book. And tell us a little bit about your faith journey and how that translated into doing a book for youth.
Right. Well, I grew up Presbyterian. My family went to a Baptist church for a while. Went to college and kind of fell away from maybe 20 to about 30.
Most of us seem to do that. Yeah,
It seems like a trend. At 30, we joined a Methodist church, which was probably the best experience. I was back in New York, in Westchester, and great pastor and great experience.
Right.
And we moved to Las Vegas in 1995, and searched around for a place to feel at home. We spent quite a while at a Assembly of God church that was being built, and then gradually there were some changes there. We ended up at a Methodist church again. So
Oh,
Desert
okay.
Spring Methodist is where I go most of the time.
Right.
And that's where my connection is now. And I think, during that time, I started doing a process called centering prayer, which is it's a process where you kind of quiet your mind, basically, and that's taught by a Catholic priest. So I've got a lot of different pieces, but Father Thomas Keating is the one who created centering prayer.
Oh, okay.
And I started doing that in around 2003, and shortly after that, I decided to do the book. So I think there was a connection there where it was like, in centering prayer, you quiet your mind and listen to God, basically, and I think that's what
listen to what He is directing you to
right,
do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not prayer asking for stuff; it's prayer for listening. So I think that was, and what it does is it tends to open up your mind, and it kind of releases stuff from your unconscious.
Yeah.
It allows stuff to come out that has been hidden, and a lot of our, things that we do are basically driven by stuff we're not aware of.
Yeah.
As
Subconscious
Christians,
motives and things like that.
and beliefs, things we believe
Yeah.
we're not aware of. And
Yeah.
I think, there was a connection there. I don't know exactly what it was, but the timing was, I started doing the centering prayer, and then maybe 4 or 5 months later, I started doing the.
Well, that's
book.
a fascinating thing. I want to ask you another question about that. Is there what Father Keating taught you? Was it a procedure to follow physically and mentally in order to get you into that state where you can listen to God better?
It's a very simple process. It's super easy. You pick a sacred word, you sit quietly for 20 minutes, relaxed, and when you find your mind wandering, you just say quietly to yourself in your own mind the sacred word. And the sacred word is not a mantra. You don't repeat it over and over again. But what it does is it is a sign that you are, it's a way of saying, my intent is to listen to you, God.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a reminder of that. And I think what I liked about it, centering prayer at first, was that when your mind goes back to its usual radio station,
Right,
all
yeah.
the stuff that's running in there, and that's completely normal.
Yeah.
You don't criticize yourself or judge yourself for doing that. You just quietly, calmly, peacefully go back to your sacred word.
Yeah.
And so
To try to get you in that state.
right. You don't
Receptive state.
You don't make any kind of an emotional judgment about yourself for not sticking with the quiet.
Yeah.
And I like that. Because I think, a lot of times I know I do it. I, will judge myself for,
why can't I
falling
concentrate?
short
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's basically accepting, the reality of who you are, but trying to focus your attention on God and His will for you. So that's the process. So easy. But what people do, and I've taught a couple of groups how to do it over the last few years, people kind of judge themselves. It's like, I can't do this, and I know my wife, I can't do it. Well, no one can do it, perfectly.
Right,
It's just,
sure,
that's
sure.
reality. The idea
to
is,
empty your mind is a very difficult thing to do.
And so the idea is you just,
Yeah.
you accept that that's reality,
Yeah.
but you keep going back to God. And I don't know if it was Keating or somebody else, but said if you go back to God 1,000 times, that's great. That's kind of what you're looking to do.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it leaves you with a very peaceful sense. The challenge is just, you finish your 20 minutes, you do 20 minutes. Keating says twice a day. I am good if I can get it to once a day.
Right.
But at the end of that 20 minutes, you're in a very good place. It might take you 5 or 10 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
But when you're there, you come out of it, you're peaceful,
Yeah.
you're loving, you're centered. And then the challenge is just to kind of stay with God and maintain that through the day as your challenges come up and your aggravations come up and your
Yes.
habits, your mental habits,
Yes, yeah.
or problems. But it's a great practice, and I think there was some connection there that was
Allowed you to.
well. The story developed. I had this idea. I had. There's a character in the book called Wumpy. He's the youngest.
Great name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wumpy. When I was a kid, I would tell stories to I had 2 brothers. I was the oldest of 3, and I used to tell stories on the trips we would take. And so Wumpy was the youngest, and then the other two were Ishkabibble and Pumpernickel. But I didn't think I could use those in this story. I just used regular names in the story. But
Right.
I liked Wumpy, and Wumpy was always fun. And I tried to make him fun in the story and relaxing. But the kid has like perfect faith.
Yes.
And so the brothers. The thing about the story is that I wanted to have a story where there was opportunity to talk about how faith matters. And so. The oldest brother in the story, who's not me, is not me at all. He's an athlete, a very popular guy, kind of a success in the eyes of the world. Girls love him.
Yes.
He's very popular, but he has a real antipathy or hostility towards religion.
Okay.
For some reasons that come up in the book, but so the difference is there as he goes. It's interesting as he goes back to these events in Jesus' life. And how he sees them, and then how Wumpy deals with some of the challenges they face because of his faith. So
That's interesting.
that was one of the things I was trying to get to in the book.
Yeah.
Why does faith matter? What is it? What's the difference if we have it or if we don't?
An important question.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
Yeah.
We're going to take a brief break, and I want to hold the book up. It's called The Greatest Adventure of All Time by Dave Newton, and you can get it on Amazon.com. Just look up the name of the book or use Dave's name, and you'll be able to get it. So we'll be back with Dave Newton discussing the book for your kids or grandkids right after this.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world. A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. We have David Newton with us, who's written a wonderful book, which is called The Greatest Adventure of All Time, and it's for youth, and you said about 11 and up, something like that. And it's a great, terrific book, and I highly recommend it for your kids and grandkids. Terrific title. How'd you come up with The Greatest Adventure of All Time?
Well, I had a really hard time coming up with a title.
Did you?
And I was not thrilled with that title, frankly, because it sounds a little bit overstated, and I hate it when people overstate stuff.
Right.
And I even put that on the back of the book. If you read the back, it'll say, oh, I hate when you do that. So I kind of explain it on the back of the book that I picked that title partially because it kind of goes along with the story about Jesus, the greatest story ever told.
Right, yeah.
So
which was a motion picture.
Right, the greatest story ever told.
Yeah.
So that was kind of along the lines. And then in the story, the youngest character, Wumpy, says, "Oh, this was the greatest adventure of all time" at the end of it. So
Right.
we haven't gotten into the story, but they go back in time. So it's kind of a play off on the greatest adventure of all time. It was his opinion, and he's 7, so what does he know? But after I picked that title, I thought to myself that if nothing else, my mother could say, "My son wrote the greatest adventure of all time," and be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
Only moms believe that.
my mom can say that with complete honesty,
Oh,
and
that's sweet.
she always wanted me. She was always, encouraging me to try to write a book, and because she thought I was a good storyteller as a kid. So
Yeah.
I didn't go that way in my career, but when it came time to write one, that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
She was very encouraging about the fact that I could do it and should do it. So.
Yeah. Speaking of motivations, have you ever been in youth ministry? Did that give you an idea of the way kids think?
Yeah. My wife and I were youth counselors back in New York when we were living there, and I was a Sunday school teacher for a few years here in Las Vegas. And the challenge is to find things that are interesting.
Yeah.
To make the youth group sessions fun, interesting,
Right.
and also educational without being beating kids over the head with it.
Right.
And so
sure. Yeah.
my first motivation for the story was to write a good story. I mean, to write something that people enjoyed and had fun and kept reading through. So didn't want to stop. But the second motivation was just a way to bring up some issues that I think are important. And for youth group leaders and for Sunday school teachers, it's a tool where they can have a story that's interesting and have characters,
Right.
but raise some topics up that are of value, or important to kids. And honestly, sometimes I don't think we do a good enough job to explain, why faith matters. So in the story, when they go back in time, one of the brothers has really strong faith, and one has no faith, has hostility, in fact. And so the conversation between them and the things that happen and how they react, that gives a youth group leader, a Sunday school teacher, opportunities to talk about those things.
Sure.
In a way that's not like out of a text or a typical religious tract or something like that. Just something that's a little bit more fun and a little bit more low-key.
Yeah,
I'd
that's
say,
interesting. And you learned that as you were teaching kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think different kids react in different ways, and so it's nice to have a variety of tools. I mean, some kids are fine with some things, and other kids want something a little bit different. And you get to people in different ways, and things click, and seeds get planted that may not come to fruition for years, but later on. I think it's also a great tool for evangelism, because if you know somebody who is not aware of the story of Jesus,
and there's many more than you think.
Yeah. I mean, it's more and more nowadays. And it's hard sometimes. I mean, how do you sit down and say, "Oh, I want to tell you about Jesus"? It's like, well, it's hard for kids to do. It's hard for people to do. But it's very easy to say, "Oh, hey, this is a great book. I love this story. You should check it out," and give them the book. Give it to them used. I mean, after you've read it. But then they'll get the full story, because I guess I should explain a little bit about how it comes up.
Yeah, please do now. Yeah.
So the story is about a girl in the future, in the 22nd century, who comes home one day and finds out, she's 14 years old, she comes home and finds out that the time machine her father created has returned from the past without him. And there's a little message that he's left for her, just in case he didn't come back, and it explains that he didn't want the time machine to be lost, but if something happened to him, he had it programmed to come back to the time, so it wasn't lost. And she decides, her mother had died 2 years ago, and she's just kind of overcoming that loss. And so she decides she's going to go back and look for him. And she knows that the time that he was going back in time to was Jesus' time, because that was the most interesting story. He wanted to see those events for himself. So she believes that that's where he went back in time. So she figures out how to use the time machine, and she does a test landing in the present time in a remote area of the United States, and she runs into 3 brothers. She basically lands in a field behind their kind of remote house. So she meets 3 brothers, and 16, 13, and 7, and they give her some hot chocolate, they hear her story, and
Right.
they decide that they're going to go back with her. And because who could pass up that kind of an adventure?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
So, but anyway, the youngest brother, Wumpy, is the one who has the perfect faith, and the oldest brother, James, has no faith and a lot of hostility towards God and religion.
Is the middle boy a negotiator? Because I'm a middle
You're
son.
the middle. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Well,
they're always kind of negotiating their existence.
The middle one is Luke, and Luke is
Yeah.
the one who is trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
Okay, he is. My mother was a middle. My father was a middle.
Right.
Obviously, I'm one of three, so I have a brother who is a middle. So
Sure.
I get the middle challenge.
Yes.
But he's the one who I think is actually probably the closest to me,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was the oldest. He's trying to figure it out. I mean, what is it all about?
Yeah. What does this mean?
What does this mean?
Where
What does it
do
mean
I
for
fit
me?
in?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
he's the one who is the seeker a little bit and searcher. So the two extremes are the oldest and the youngest, and he's the one in the middle. So when they go back in time, they go to the events of Jesus' life.
Yeah.
They go to the birth. They're looking for her dad.
Yeah.
Then they go to Palm Sunday. They're looking for her dad. After Palm Sunday, Jesus goes to the temple and starts turning things over. They're watching that. They're looking for her dad.
Right.
A few of the other events, feeding the 5,000. Jesus walking on water, which is where we get the picture on the cover. They're looking for her dad, where they think, where she thinks he would be.
He might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it goes on, but I don't
So
want to give
the-
everything away because
Yeah.
we can't
So
kill
the
the
four
story.
of them, the four kids, experience all of, or many of Jesus's events.
Right. And so
Yeah.
they experience the key events of his life and death and resurrection. So
Wow.
by giving the book, to get back to the question, by giving the book to a kid who doesn't know anything about Jesus, you have told him the story of Jesus, him or her, the story of Jesus. And who knows, what that, means to them, because
Yeah.
I find it tough. I mean, kids who don't know Jesus, I don't know how they get through life sometimes. Life
Sure.
is tough and there's challenges and problems. I mean, every time I read about a kid who's, 12 or 15 who commits suicide, I'm like, really? Maybe
Yeah.
if you knew that there was, more to life than social media.
And there's hope.
There's hope. Yeah, there's you're loved. You're created in God's image. These parts of the story, I think, are relevant, and I just feel bad for kids who don't know it.
Yeah, you mentioned something fascinating in the first segment when you said kids need to know that faith matters, and that seems to be the central core of your book. Am I correct in saying
Right.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's two cores: faith matters, and why,
Yeah.
and how does it change how we see the world?
Right.
How does Wumpy see the world different than James? And the other core is the idea that perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
And so, again, if you know the story of Jesus, that's part of it. But then applying it, well, why does it matter? Well, love is what solves our fear problem, and perfect love is the one that casts it out.
Sure.
And so
sure.
we all deal with fears, and so it's love that is the solution, not the solution that the world tells us. And
What
I think,
what a great thing to leave with young people.
yeah.
Because that is so true, and as you mentioned with suicide, kids have a lot of fears, don't they?
Yeah. Well, we
Yeah.
all do. Everybody has fears. I mean, they
Yeah.
hide it well, but the ego that drives the world is driven by fears.
Yeah.
That we won't get what we need, we won't get what we want, we'll lose what we have. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all about the ego. And so in the story, Luke, the middle kid, has to overcome a fear to help rescue Val, who's the girl from the future. So he has a very deep-seated fear that he has to overcome. And so that's where that comes up.
This sounds like it could be a series.
Well, we make a great movie.
We talked
Anyone
about that
listening out
before we
there?
rolled.
Yeah,
and,
it'd be an awesome
You got to write a
movie.
treatment and pass
Yeah.
it along to producers, and
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah,
who
I think
knows? Yeah.
my first step is to try to sell the book, and then and encourage people to. I don't even care if people buy it and pass it around to other people. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not really. This is not really a money-making operation for me. This is
Yeah.
more a labor of love, of something that I have wanted to do.
That's
and
the best
and I
kind.
think it matters and can help people.
Yeah,
Like I said, the
that's the best
seed
thing.
that gets planted by understanding the story of Jesus and understanding that maybe the world view of, what's the solution, maybe that's not the only one, maybe there's another way that a lot of people believe is true.
Yeah, that's right.
So at least it opens people's minds.
Sure.
To
well,
something
we need to
different.
take another break, I'm sorry to say. It'll just be a brief one. We'll be back with David Newton, the author of a terrific book for youth. I'll stop saying children. Which is called The Greatest Adventure of All Time. I want to hold it up so you can see Jesus walking on water. That's the book you want to look for. And we'll be back with Dave in just a moment. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. We're interviewing a Las Vegan, as we usually do on our program. The Greatest Adventure of All Time is a terrific book for kids about 11 or 12 and up. It's a terrific adventure, has a very strong female lead. And let's talk about that for just a minute. First of all, it had to be kind of difficult to write a female lead, but you did a great job of doing it, Dave.
Yeah, honestly, I feel much more comfortable writing about the three guys, the three brothers. I feel like I have a total handle on that, at least from my own childhood, which may be different than the way it is today, I'm sure. But
she is a strong protagonist. She's brave. She's empowered. She's adventurous. I mean, I think for today's girls of about 14 in middle school, high school, she's a pretty good role model.
She is a great role model.
Yeah.
She comes home and has a message from her dad, and the message is a hologram that her dad has left her just in case he didn't come back, saying, hey, basically, I'm really sorry. I didn't think this would happen. I thought I'd be back, but I had to try this. I mean, this was my life's dream to do time travel, and if the time machine is back and I'm not there with it, that means something happened to me. So she collapses for a second, a few minutes. Her mother had died 2 years before that, so she's alone. And she decides, she has close aunt and uncle. It mentions them, and her father mentions, you've got your aunt and uncle, take care of you. And she decides to go back into the past looking for her dad. Yeah. So she figures out how to use the machine, and then she goes back, and she's the leader of the group. And there are times in the story where, of course, she gets discouraged as she's looking for her dad and can't find him. But there's times when the guys are wanting to give up, and she's like, listen,
You signed up for this
yeah,
deal.
you don't have to. I'll take you right back. I'll drop you off and I'll come right back. You don't need to be here if you don't want to. So, quit whining and let's go. And so she's a great role model. She's, I think somebody, if you had a daughter, she'd be a fantastic role model. Of course, I don't want to give away the story, but
enough that people are teased into buying it. Obviously,
well, I think you'll find that she's somebody that her dad's proud of.
It's very interesting because just last week somebody asked me on Facebook if you could go back and meet anybody in history, who would it be, and why? And so I wrote, how can it be anybody except Jesus? Right. Because is there a more fascinating person in history? And we know the answer to that. And the reason, of course, is he changed history, and he's our Savior and our King, and we should worship him and all of that. But to see it, to see him walking the earth, and to meet his disciples, and to know what's going to happen. That reminds me, they could change history, couldn't they?
Well, there's arguments about that.
Really?
That's up for discussion. We can hypothesize about that. In the future, we don't know what happens. Val's father, in fact, thinks you can't change it.
Oh, okay.
But the government in the future thinks you can change it, so that's why they prevent him from. They discontinue his project. So he's doing it completely off the books and unofficially. But he doesn't believe that's the case. He believes what we have in history is what happened. Yes. And so whatever's there is there because that's what happened.
And you can observe it, but you can't intervene.
Right, exactly.
That's his belief.
Yeah. So, but what's cool is, she thinks that that's what he would go back and look for. And what could be more cool than walking on water, feeding 5,000 people? How'd that happen? That kind of thing. Turning over the money changers' tables, preaching to the people, criticizing the Pharisees. Which he does when he's turning over the table. So all the stories are based right out of the Bible.
Right.
They're all.
The dialogue is right.
The dialogue is some of the dialogue that I use from the Message version.
Right.
So the Message version of the Bible is a very easily understood version. It's a paraphrase, but I think the paraphrase, over the course of thousands of years, the exact, wording is maybe varies in different versions of it, but the Message version is a very reader-friendly version. So
and if you've never been exposed to the story, that's a contemporary way to understand it.
It doesn't use thy and thou and stuff. So if you're trying to reach, the youth of today and try to make it seem relevant, I thought the Message version of what Jesus had to say was probably the best. And I think the meaning is there, and the impact is definitely there.
Yeah. Now James was the oldest, right? The oldest of the boys, who went along in the foursome. But tell me a little bit more about his character, because I find him fascinating. He is really antagonistic to the whole idea of God and Jesus and religion at large. How does he change?
Well, as he sees these things, and actually he meets Jesus, and Jesus talks to him. So that event changes him, and he sees something that's real and something that's compelling. And can you imagine meeting Jesus and what that would do to you and how that would impact you? How do you say that this is not true if you watch him walk on water? Now, if you see in the picture of the story, he's up. That's what they're doing. The time machine. Yeah,
they're up above.
The time machine. The way that it works is it either can be enclosed or it can be invisible. So the time machine itself, when they decide to make it invisible, they are just out there hanging in the sky, basically. So they're watching Jesus walk on water. They're watching him feed the 5,000. They're watching him. In fact, we'll get to the rest of the story. If you read, I don't want to give the whole plot away, but he sees Jesus. He sees Jesus. He sees Jesus. He meets Jesus. Jesus tells him he loves him. So that changes him. And the interesting thing is that part of James's problems is problems with his father, and so he has his father has gotten away from, has left the mother to date somebody else, and so it's been tough on James, who had a very close relationship with his dad. So anyway, that's how he basically changes over the course of the time of the story.
Yeah, and that's a common problem in today's environment, and also people, men and women, girls and boys, if they have a difficult relationship with their own father, it often drives them away from God the Father, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that we were talking about centering prayer before, and one of the things that is an unconscious belief that I think affects a lot of us is our unconscious beliefs about God. Is God the harsh father? Is he the harsh judge? Or is he the loving father? And so a lot of people, I think, who, like you say, have had difficulties with their father or no father.
Right.
It's hard to see God as a loving father, as an all-loving father. So that's, I think, part of the real challenge that we as Christians have to get out better than we've done. I mean, because I think a lot of us as Christians, honestly, sometimes see God as a more of a judge and more of a harsh taskmaster sometimes. And again, that comes from our relationship with our Father or from other authority figures. So that's
well, taking that on is a difficult task. You handle it very well in the book, and I admire you for getting it done that way, because that must have been something you saw in your youth ministry days. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Let's take another brief break, and we'll come back with David Newton right after these messages.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from sin to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world. A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
And we're back on Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. And surprisingly, we're in our last segment with Dave Newton, who's written a wonderful book. It's called The Greatest Adventure of All Time. It has Jesus stories, but it's put together in a really interesting way with a time machine and some kids who are from 7 to 14, right? Or 16.
16.
Yeah. And it's really for youth from 11 or 12 up. And Dave's done a great job. He's also prepared a leader's guide for small groups So if you are a youth leader or a small group leader, or you're active in your church and you want kids of that age group to read the book and understand the book, there's a leader's guide. And how do they get the leader's guide, by the way?
Just contact me. There's a Facebook page they can reach me at and request
okay.
it. My Twitter is on the back of the book.
Oh, okay.
So they can just request it. It's free. And it basically gives a synopsis of the chapter and chapters, and it gives discussion questions, and it gives all the Bible references. So if you want to teach Bible stories, you can have the references for where the story in the book came from in the Bible.
And it's called The Leader's Guide. And if you go to Dave's Facebook, which is the name of the book itself, The Greatest Adventure of All Time, you can request the Leader's Guide for free.
Yeah, it's
for free, which proves your earlier point. You're not in it for the money.
No.
That's wonderful that you're doing it and you've taken this all on. As you've said, I don't want to give away the entire story, but it is fascinating the way the book wraps up. Do you see that this could be a series? This could be the next Harry Potter?
Well, that would be awesome. That would be awesome for God. Because to get the word out about Jesus, the story of Jesus, the gospel, the good news, to get that out to a lot of people, that would be great.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, there's so many people who don't know it. And that's a shame, and that's a loss.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that our world is so challenged.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And this is also a book-length tract, I think, because it really explains the faith in a simple way, but a straightforward way. And as you said, using the Message Bible version, the explanation is pretty clear. And I think adults could learn from this too.
Well, I think adults love the book. I mean, so when I target it and when we say it's for youth, that was my intention. But adults love the book too. So I think sometimes I suspect they might like it more.
Really?
I think it may be a little bit more of a blast from the past, and I'm in my 60s, and my approach is baby boomers approach. It sounds funny to call a 60-year-old a baby boomer.
Yeah, it does.
But I think baby boomers actually and older people have actually enjoyed the book a lot. So if you enjoy a story. If you enjoy a story that's an interesting story with fun stuff and exciting stuff and suspense and how do they get out of this? So I've had enough people tell me that they've had trouble putting it down. That it's been that
it's a page turner.
That's
no
good
doubt.
enough. Yeah, that's good enough. I think it's a story that once you get into it, it's a classic adventure story where you've got the heroes, up against difficult odds.
Cliffhangers.
And, you got how are they going to get out of this? And, what's going to happen to her? And do they ever find her dad? And what happened to him? So.
We touched on a serious issue that I want to explore a little more in depth, and that is kids and their self-image problems that sometimes even lead to suicide, cyberbullying and things like that. I think this book really helps at a critical point in children's lives and kids' lives, a self-image issue. And she demonstrates a lot of bravery and ability to do what she needs to get done, and the boys do too. And I think this could be a life-saving book in many ways. It's kind of a serious way to look at an adventure story, but I think you've done a great job of that, Dave.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I hope it has a positive impact. I know it could have a positive impact on kids. And my heart goes out to kids who don't know Jesus. That's to think that your appearance, your what version of the iPod or iPhone you've got,
Yeah.
or your clothes, or your looks. I mean, to think that that stuff, drives people to such levels of stress and depression. I mean, it's such a shame.
Yeah, I know.
It's such a shame. And we as Christians have to tell people that God loves them.
Yes.
That kids have to know that they're valued, that they're created in the image of God. And when we slip and we don't do a good enough job of that, and it is hard. I get it. I mean, I've never been a great evangelist.
It's a hard thing to do.
It's a hard thing to do. It's hard to find the right time, to find the right place, to risk, having somebody say, "Oh, you're a Jesus freak or something. I don't want to deal with you. You're a nut."
The rejection aspect.
Yeah. So I mean, there's all the challenge. So I think there's no easier way now. There's no simpler way to put that in the hands of some kid. And hopefully you find a kid who likes to read, who enjoys stories, and can, like I say, plant a seed that will maybe matter when they're going through tough times, because we all go through tough times.
Sure,
I mean, childhood is tough. I don't know how they do it these days.
I know.
I look at
The
my
pressures are
childhood
phenomenal,
and I think how simple it was.
Yeah.
We went out and played and we had a good time, and we
When the
weren't.
street lights came on, we went home.
That's it.
And we didn't
when
have
you
a lot
heard-
of fear.
You heard your mother calling you. We weren't afraid of strangers. We weren't afraid of terrorists. We weren't afraid of people shooting up the school. I mean, never.
know, yeah,
Well, we worried about maybe them dropping a bomb on it, hide under the desk just in case.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
We really.
The civil defense days.
Yeah, I mean,
there was that.
we really weren't. We didn't have the complications and the things that kids have to deal with today.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, and what I like about your protagonist is, she's at a point in her life where girls especially seem to have a lot of difficulties with how they look, with their body image, with how popular they are, and watching kids grow up, and I've got kids and grandkids now. It seems to me that it's especially difficult at that age for girls. They're in middle school, or they're, a freshman or a sophomore in high school, or all the way through high school, and they lose their self-confidence because it seems like they start out more advanced than boys, and they're the best in class, and they're most athletic, and then they hit that age, and the bottom falls out.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, my wife and I were youth group leaders in New York when we lived there, and we worked with, for a while, the senior youth, and then for a while, the junior youth. And the junior youth, the 13 to 15-year-olds, it's a tough time. It's really a tough time. And even back then, we're going back now a few years, it's tough because you're changing from a child to an adult, and you're changing back, or you want to be an adult, but you want to be, so it's really a hard time. And and with social media and with things like that we never had to deal with, it's tough. So I think the media, social media, advertising, Hollywood, I mean, the message that how you look matters, and how other people, want you matters. That's a losing message. That's a really losing message, because who can live up to that?
Nobody.
Who can live up? Who's perfect? Whose face or body is perfect?
Yeah.
So I mean, what's perfect is God's love for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Mm-hmm. And that's why when Jesus said, some people build their houses on sand, and then when they have tough times, the house gets washed away. So, Jesus is the rock that you build it on, and then when the tough times come, you don't get that, washed away. You don't, when your boyfriend, rejects you, or somebody makes fun of you, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
It's not worth killing yourself over, or hurting yourself, or something else.
Yes, I know, and it's so tragic, and as you said, so difficult today, and we need way more of this. I hope you'll write another one, and it becomes a series. I really do. It's a wonderful book. I want to hold it up one more time. The Greatest Adventure of All Time is what it's called, and it really does a wonderful job of what David has spoken about, and that's how perfect love drives out fear. And in this last segment, that's basically what we've been talking about, are the fears that that boys and girls, teenagers, older and younger, have, and the maturity issues and the aspects of it's also important. It's a great ride. The story's a great ride. So as a parent and a grandparent, I wanna thank you for doing this. I really do, and I'm gonna make you sign a copy and keep it and give it to one of my grandkids, because I got a couple grandkids in that age group. So thanks again for joining Las Vegas tonight, David. I wish you all the best and great luck with the book. Again, the book is available on Amazon.com. All you need to do is put in David's name, David Newton, or the title, The Greatest Adventure of All Time. It'll pop up, and in today's world, it'll be in your on your front porch in 3 days. It's just pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. Thanks again, David.
Artie, thank you very much.
Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Yes, God bless
Appreciate
you.
it. God bless
You've been
you.
watching Las Vegas Tonight. Join us again next week at this time. God bless you, and as I say each and every episode, please walk with Him.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Las Vegas Tonight. Allow me to take just a few moments to let you know how you can learn more about some of the fascinating guests that I've interviewed. My new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints, is now available around the world. In it, I profile amazing people who make Las Vegas something much more than just a place to party. These compelling stories often tell of people who came to Las Vegas for reasons much different than the innovative ministries they ended up leading right here in Sin City. Take, for example, Tommy Scott, known as Hitman to his fellow members of an infamous gang in South Central Los Angeles. Tommy was serving time in a Las Vegas jail and contemplating suicide when a couple of pastors visited him in the lockup and led him to Christ. Tommy immediately began studying the Word and has become an on-fire evangelist and Christian author. Then there's Annie Meadows. Annie began life in a rural part of Kentucky, increasingly was fascinated with the occult, and eventually became a full-fledged witch. Rejecting anything having to do with God, she angrily vowed never to attend church or have anything at all to do with religion. Then, like Tommy, she had an encounter with the living Christ and now travels the world as a gospel singer and writes Christian children's books. Pastor Chris Chappell was an avowed atheist who also wanted nothing to do with the Lord. He was a successful businessman who felt he surely didn't need Jesus. His wife and father-in-law convinced him to attend church, and he felt a stirring that made him investigate the Bible's claims. Telling the Lord that he needed answers to his objections, he found those answers in a supernatural way and is now leading a remarkable church, Casa de Luz, in what's called the Naked City, which is a neighborhood just off the famous Las Vegas Strip. This formerly crime-ridden area is now experiencing a remarkable turnaround, and his church is serving that community in amazing ways. Doc Jones traveled to Las Vegas from New York on a personal mission to make as much money as he could. A born entrepreneur, he started a photography business that specialized in taking pictures of groups of partiers at the hot nightclubs on the Strip. He then learned that by referring young guys to the city strip clubs, he could pick up lots of cash from the club's owners. That evolved into sending young women who were wannabe strippers to these so-called gentlemen's clubs, and then he managed their careers. Eventually, he felt so empty and despondent that he too thought seriously of suicide. Hearing a sermon about the prodigal son caused him to dedicate his life to Christ. Now an exceptional musician and composer of gospel rap, hip-hop, and spoken word genres, he is helping change Las Vegas from a place where sin abounds to a city where grace abounds more. Pastor Clegg Seth was an aspiring actor and screenwriter in Hollywood and a strong Christian who wanted to make a real difference for Christ in the entertainment world. But the Lord called him to establish a crisis hotline for runaway teens who were coming to Hollywood to pursue their silver screen dreams. He then started halfway houses for men and women with substance abuse and other problems. He also helped set up a similar men's home in Las Vegas. At one point, he developed a gambling habit, but the Lord delivered him from that problem, and he now devotes his life to sharing Christ with men in prison, serving seniors in a church setting, along with visits to nursing homes and hospitals. He has continued his quest to influence Hollywood through a ministry called the Christian Studio. I personally really look up to Clegg Seth as a model of how a Christian should live and serve others. He truly is one of the Vegas saints. Read these stories and more in this 226-page book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You can get your copy in several different ways. Go to my website, vegassaints.org, or order it on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. It's just $15.99 plus shipping. For more information or to make a donation to Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries that will help us keep this program on the air, please call 702-480-3989. Or you can write to us at Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada 89117. And thank you so much for watching Las Vegas Tonight.
A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to
Come on and shine.
Welcome to social media shows. Have you been watching social media shows recently? Of course you have. We have been live streaming for 4 years across social media platforms. We produce over 70 shows with over 1,000 episodes. In the process, we've helped over 100 creators realize their dreams and start their own show. We give platforms to promote your business. If you are an artist, if you have an event, if you are entrepreneurs, or if you have a story. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead and subscribe and follow us on major social media platforms. And if you have a great idea of a show, join us. Social media shows can help you produce and live stream your own show. Let us help you make your dream become a reality.
Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Skoda with Social Media Shows. Well, I thank all of you for your support through these last several years, and it's been a lot of fun. We've given people a voice they never had before. Now, Social Media Shows is always collaborating with our veterans to help them do things and help out the veterans who are struggling today. And we teamed up with GI Connections, connecting veterans with resources. So please consider helping and donating to this great cause because we're always doing things for veterans. So GI Connections, Social Media Shows, and you is what makes the world a better place. Once again, Joseph Skoda, proud United States Air Force veteran.
Come on.